Rothschild family became involved in Freemasonry in the year 1802 when James Mayer de Rothschild and Nathan Mayer Rothschild joined Emulation Lodge No. 12 in London, England. By 1893, the Rothschild family established their own Masonic lodges, including Ferdinand de Rothschild Lodge No. 2420 and Concordia Lodge No. 2492. Both Masonic lodges are currently active. By our estimation, all living Rothschilds of any significance are members of one of these family-owned lodges. Due to the powerful influence of the Rothschild family across the globe, it is highly likely that one of the living members of the Rothschild dynasty may be the Grand Architect of Freemasonry. Possible suspects include David René de Rothschild, Evelyn Robert de Rothschild, or Jacob Rothschild. Our theory concerning Rothschild Freemasonry can be stated as follows. In the early 1900s, Lionel Walter Rothschild used his Freemason connections within the British government to convince the Crown to cede the British colony of Palestine over to the Rothschild family, so they might create the Freemason outpost, which today is known as the State of Israel. The Rothschilds foresaw the tremendous value of a Freemason base of operations in the oil-rich Middle East. They would use their Jewish identity as an excuse to colonize Israel. While modern Israel itself is not an oil-rich country, it is strategically located among oil-rich nations. This geographic location allows the Rothschilds and their Freemason cohorts to keep a close eye on the Middle Eastern puppet dictators they put in power, and control the flow of oil and gas. Freemason Zionists, such as the Rothschilds and Warburgs, showed little compassion for the Jewish community at large, leading up to and during World War II. For example, Royal Dutch Shell executive Lord Victor Rothschild fought hard to deny asylum to Jewish refugees across Europe. Rothschilds were permitted to take up residence in Switzerland once the threat to European Jews escalated, while thousands of common Jews were turned away at gunpoint as they approached the Swiss border. Once the Rothschilds were safe within Switzerland, the Rothschild puppet Adolf Hitler refused to invade. Hitler had no problem rolling his tanks through other neutral countries during World War II, such as Norway, Denmark, Belgium, and the Netherlands. The Nazis burned entire Scandinavian villages to the ground according to their scorched earth policy. Hundreds of thousands died in these neutral countries due to the German invasion. However, Hitler would not lay a hand on his precious Rothschild handlers in Switzerland. One of the families which intermarried with the Rothschilds was the Warburg family. Max Warburg, the Jewish king of Hamburg, self-proclaimed God of the Jews, owner of the bank Warburg, and Grand Orient Freemason, willingly chose to serve on the board of the Nazi Reichsbank under his Freemason boss, Hjalmar Schacht. Warburg floated loans for Hitler's Reich. Warburg profited from a close relationship with Hitler for many years, as the atrocities against common Jews piled up before his eyes. These atrocities included the nationwide Jewish boycott and the Nuremberg laws. Max Warburg worked hand in hand with the Nazis on a scheme where Jewish bank accounts were seized. If the Jews who owned the accounts agreed to move to Israel permanently, they could receive a portion of the money stolen from them. If they fled to any country other than Israel, they would forfeit all money held in escrow. Warburg earned interest on the stolen funds, while many European Jews were forced to make the trek to Israel. This information is well documented in the Havara Agreement. In addition, Warburg managed the closure of Jewish businesses throughout the Reich and saw profits soar up until 1938. Max Warburg shared common traits with the Jewish Nazi collaborator George Soros. In recent times, Soros was asked about the good old days when he used to kick Jews out of their homes for Hitler, and he replied, "It was the happiest time of my life." Soros happens to be a top donor for Hillary Clinton. Eventually, Warburg and his family took a vacation to America and never returned to Germany. However, Max received special permission from Hitler to maintain silent ownership in Warburg from abroad for at least 1 year after the bank was handed over to Rudolf Brinkmann at the onset of war. Before switching hands, all Warburg funds were transferred out of Germany to Warburg banks located abroad. Another Warburg who supported Hitler was Jewish Nazi scientist Otto Heinrich Warburg. Otto continued to work alongside the likes of Dr. Mengele and the Nazi professor Eugen Fischer at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute throughout World War II. Supposedly, he was involved in cancer research. Despite Otto being a Jew, he was safe in Berlin under Hitler's direct protection. It is quite obvious that Masons like the Rothschilds and Warburgs used the majority of Jews as pawns, as they sought to create the Freemason outpost of Israel. Even today, the average Jew celebrates these monsters when they should be calling for their arrest. The Rothschilds are obsessed with Freemason symbology. For instance, they funded the creation of the Israeli Supreme Court, which features a Freemason pyramid complete with an all-seeing eye, as well as obelisks located throughout the property. The Rothschilds prefer to live near obelisks, as these structures represent Freemason centers of power. One of these obelisks is located in Place de la Concorde, Paris, where Guy de Rothschild grew up. Another obelisk was erected in the Rothschild-owned town of Caesarea, Israel. Baron Benjamin de Rothschild currently lives in Caesarea. You might be asking yourself, why erect an Egyptian obelisk in the heart of Israel? Are the Rothschild Jews celebrating the alleged enslavement of the Israelites by the Egyptian ruler Ramses? Well, not exactly. The obelisk represents the penis of Osiris, as described in the legend of Osiris and Isis. Egyptian mythology plays an important role in Freemasonry. While some believe that Zionists are ruling the world, we believe that the ruling Freemasons just happen to be Zionists. We also believe that the Rothschild Freemasons and their close friends, the Rockefellers, have been rigging U.S. presidential elections for many decades. The Rockefeller family was one of Hitler's biggest supporters, supplying him with tetraethyl lead for his aircraft through the Rockefeller-owned company Standard Oil of New Jersey. In addition, the Rockefellers funded the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute of Anthropology, Human Heredity, and Eugenics, and provided scholarships to the likes of Dr. Mengele. In a seemingly bizarre twist of fate, the Rothschild Jews chose the Rockefeller Nazis out of billions of people on Earth as their closest allies. There is a high probability that a Freemason connection unites these two evil families. In 2012, Rothschild Capital Partners was invited to purchase a 37% stake in the private Rockefeller Wealth Advisory and Asset Management Group. David Rockefeller was quoted as saying, "The connection between the two families remains very strong." Indeed it does. The Rothschilds and Rockefellers have openly been partners for over 50 years, and their secret relationships go back even further. When it comes to U.S. presidential candidates, are there any clues which might help us uncover a Rothschild-Rockefeller Freemason conspiracy? Let's investigate. As far as the Clintons go, we know that Bill is a member of Demolay International. Demolay is a branch of Freemasonry based on the Knights Templar. Under Masonic oaths, a Freemason must favor other Masons over non-Masons. Therefore, Bill's loyalty lies first with the Rothschild Freemasons rather than you and me. Bill Clinton is also a Rhodes Scholar. The Rhodes Scholarship was devised by white supremacist and African miner Cecil Rhodes, along with his business partner, Natty Rothschild. Today, the Rothschilds handpick every Rhodes Scholar, including scumbags such as former CIA Director James Woolsey, former presidential candidate and NATO Supreme Commander Wesley Clark, Council on Foreign Relations President Richard Haass, CNN Chairman and Aspen Institute President Walter Isaacson, George Stephanopoulos, author Naomi Wolf, UN Ambassador Susan Rice, Bobby Jindal, and Rachel Maddow of MSNBC. Hillary is a member of the Bilderberg Group, which was co-founded by Netherlands Prince Bernhard and David Rockefeller. Hillary is also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, which was founded by the Rockefeller family. Bill attended Bilderberg in 1991 as he prepared to assume the role of the U.S. puppet president. Hacked email accounts show that Hillary is close friends with Lady Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, wife of Queen Elizabeth's financial advisor, Sir Evelyn Robert de Rothschild. In one of the emails, Rothschild tells Hillary she would love to catch up, and, "I remain your loyal, adoring pal." Clinton responds, "Let's make that happen," and signs her response, "Much love, H." Rothschild also tells Hillary, "I was trying to reach you to tell you and Teddy that I asked Tony Blair to go to Israel as part of our full-court press on keeping the Middle East negotiations going." Lady Rothschild was introduced to Sir Evelyn by a close Rothschild family friend, Henry Kissinger. The Clintons invited the Rothschilds to spend their honeymoon at the White House. Lady Rothschild served on Bill Clinton's National Information Infrastructure Advisory Council from 1993 to 1995. The Rothschilds have been some of the biggest fundraisers for the Clinton campaigns over the years. Lynn Forrester Rothschild is a member of Rockefeller's Council on Foreign Relations and Chatham House. She also works for Deutsche Bank and sits on the board of the John McCain Institute. Like Hillary, Trump also has connections to the Freemason cartel. However, due to recent developments in public awareness, we believe that the Rothschild-Rockefeller cartel is using middlemen to communicate with Trump. In the future, it may be impossible to find provable links between the fake presidential candidates and the cartel. That is why it is so important that we expose the fake U.S. elections now. First, let's take a look at Trump's VP, Mike Pence. Pence's voting record is in line with Rockefeller objectives. Pence was pro-NAFTA, CAFTA, and TPP. David Rockefeller was the man directly responsible for NAFTA and CAFTA through his work with the Council of the Americas. Pence also supports the Patriot Act. Like so many other crooked politicians, Pence was a member of Congress during the 9/11 false flag and did his part to sell the lie concerning Iraqi involvement. He then supported the war in Iraq. 9/11 war criminal Jeb Bush recently voiced his support for Pence, saying, "Pence is a good man. He will add value to the ticket." Another big supporter of Donald J. Trump is Newt Gingrich. Gingrich was a serious contender for the VP spot. You can see Gingrich on Fox News every day pumping Trump to no end. Gingrich is a member of the secretive sex club known as Bohemian Grove. I'm sure many of you already know that the Manhattan nuclear project was devised at the Grove. Gingrich meets up with the Bush family and hundreds of other demented freaks, such as David Rockefeller, at the annual Grove ceremony called the Cremation of Care. Incidentally, Ronald Reagan was also a member of Bohemian Grove. Gingrich was also the Southern Regional Director for Nelson Rockefeller in 1968. Gingrich sits on the International Advisory Board of the mining company Barrick Gold, where he recently worked alongside Nat Rothschild. Barrick was founded by Nat Rothschild's friend, Peter Monk. Monk has a home in Kloster, Switzerland next to Nat Rothschild. Monk's family was one of the wealthier Zionist families which escaped to Switzerland on the Kastner train, with special permission from SS officer Adolf Eichmann. Monk is business partners with Nat Rothschild's close friend, Oleg Deripaska, who likewise maintains a close friendship with Vladimir Putin. Gingrich loves his favorite mentor, Henry Kissinger, who happens to be one of David Rockefeller's best friends. Kissinger is also very close with Jacob Rothschild. In the end, Gingrich had too much obvious cartel dirt on him for the VP spot and Pence was chosen instead. However, that didn't stop Gingrich from promoting Trump's private meeting with war criminal Kissinger as a good thing on Fox News. Trump promised to give Gingrich an important position in his cabinet if he becomes the next puppet president. Secretary of State, perhaps? Casino owner Sheldon Adelson is also a friend of Newt Gingrich. Therefore, it's not surprising that Adelson donated $100 million to Trump. So much for funding your own campaign. Adelson also made large donations to George W. Bush's campaign during his second run. Adelson is close friends with the Rothschild puppet Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Let us also consider the private meeting between Trump and Richard Haass, the Rhodes Scholar and President of the Council on Foreign Relations. In reference to Haass, Trump said, "I respect Richard Haass, and I like him a lot. I have a few people that I really like and respect." Next, you have Trump's deputy campaign manager, Michael Glassner. Glassner worked for the New York Port Authority and mysteriously quit right before the 9/11 false flag. Glassner was instrumental in helping Larry Pullet Silverstein obtain the lease on the World Trade Center complex. Glassner left his director position at the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, to work for Trump. He was also George Bush's campaign manager. Glassner credits his former boss and AIPAC buddy, Howard Jonas, with encouraging him to become more active in pro-Israel politics. Glassner was a senior vice president at IDT for 7 years. Howard Jonas was the founder of IDT and Genie Energy. Genie was granted oil exploration rights by the Israeli government in the Golan Heights in Syria. Genie's advisory board includes former director of the Council on Foreign Relations, Dick Cheney, Rupert Murdoch, Rhodes Scholar James Woolsey, and Jacob Rothschild. In regards to the Genie energy deal, Jacob Rothschild was quoted as saying, "I am grateful to Howard Jonas and IDT for the opportunity to invest in this important initiative." Howard Jonas appears to be the middleman between Jacob Rothschild and Michael Glassner. Did we mention that Nat Rothschild dated Ivanka Trump? And I suppose it doesn't help that Trump's new campaign CEO, Stephen Bannon, worked for Goldman Sachs, but that is neither here nor there. Trump's connection to the Rothschild-Rockefeller Freemason cartel is real and verifiable. In this video, we have only begun to unravel the web of deceit. And what about Trump's alleged pal, Vladimir Putin? Is this guy for real? Considering that the bank NM Rothschild is located just outside Red Square in Moscow, there is something fishy about the thousands of websites which popped up overnight saying Putin kicked the Rothschilds out of Russia. Kick them out? Really? Is that why the Rothschild Bank was chosen by Putin over hundreds of Russian-owned banks to negotiate the largest Russian government oil deals, like those between Rosneft and Rockefeller-run BP Oil? Or other banking deals involving Rusal Aluminum, which were negotiated by Nat Rothschild himself? Putin is close friends with Anatoly Chubais, who is a member of Bilderberg, sits on the advisory board of Rockefeller's Council on Foreign Relations, and works for the Rockefeller family-controlled Chase Bank. Has Putin freed himself from the Rothschild-Rockefeller cartel by selling the majority of Russia's vast oil fields to Rockefeller-controlled Exxon? There are thousands of proud Russians waiting to do business with the Russian government, yet Putin pushed them aside and tracked down his old cartel business partners, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. The Rockefeller company Exxon now owns more oil fields in Russia than in all other global locations combined. Putin's predecessor, Boris Yeltsin, gave away huge chunks of Soviet state-owned businesses to mafia members like Roman Abramovich. Abramovich is close friends with Putin, and best friends with one other person you may have heard of, Nat Rothschild. The Russian government and the Rothschild-Rockefeller cartel are completely intertwined. You would have to be mentally retarded to deny this fact. We don't know exactly what Putin and the Freemason cartel are up to, but we don't trust any of the alleged animosity between Russia, the West, and Ukraine. There is a sinister plan in the works. The Masonic elite will surely sacrifice military men and women, or entire areas of the planet to accomplish their globalist goals, just as they did with the Jews of Europe. With the Masons, the end justifies the means. If there is a World War III, it will be planned by the ruling Masons. In conclusion, we cannot trust the Freemason-backed U.S. presidential elections. We cannot trust any presidential candidate. The whole system needs to be reworked. We should never support the lesser of two evils in a false election. Giving any credibility to the fake U.S. presidential elections is synonymous with driving a final nail in our respective coffins. We have begun work on an alternative which you can see at neosortition.com. A neosortition is a work in progress which promotes a lottery-chosen oversight committee made up of U.S. citizens who meet specific credentials. We rely on your comments and observations to discover weak points within this proposed system and to find better solutions for America.